Good evening, friends. Thursday, no, it's not Thursday, it's Monday. Guided Meditation Day. Hey, Mats. Oh, long time no see. Exactly. Nice to see you again. See if I have everything working. How you been? Let's see. Here we go. Take this one away a little bit as well. Yeah, nice. It's Monday. Been looking forward to this. It's been a long day, so then it's extra nice when I have meditation in the evening so that I can come and relax with my friends. Sorry if the sound just keeps on popping now. Maybe that was really loud. I hope it's okay. I've been laughing so hard before I came for this meditation. I watched a program called on YouTube called Customer States. It's absolutely hilarious. It's car mechanics who show what customers say when they bring in their cars. I've had a really nice time. Job is perfect and I'm currently loving life. That's nice to hear. It is nice when things just kind of work. It's good when life doesn't work, so you get to practice for stuff, but it's also really nice when life just works and you don't have to work all the time and practice and look at distortions and struggle with everything. Not even if you try not to struggle, it's just nice. It's highly underrated to have a life that works well. JVB, nice to see you. Andreas, hey again. Yeah, I was saying I saw this YouTube show, and it actually reminded me of spiritualism a bit, and I'll tell you why. It's called Customer State. So what they do is it's car mechanics show when customers bring in their cars, and it's absolutely insane. It's for any human being who has any kind of common sense. For instance, there was one guy who had put lead strips under his car, and to fasten it, they had taken a stapler gun and put the staples into the gas tank. There was someone else who, they didn't fit a cable through because they were going to pull a new brake cable. So then they sawed into the suspension, like the arms of the wheels. They sawed through that to make way for the brake cable. And then they were wondering why the car wasn't stable. And you just look at it, you're like, what? Like, how is this even possible? How could someone do something like that and not realize that it's probably not what you should do? And I know that when you don't feel well, I have the same thing myself when I get really tired or when you're stressed and stuff, then you make weird decisions and you don't see clearly. And I think in spiritualism, it's quite similar. People do all these weird things with cars. We actually have some kind of rules that regulate, and there are ways that are better than others to do things. And in Sweden, we have quite strict rules, for better or for worse, a lot of people would say. But the good thing is that we just can't have cars like that driving here. They would never last more than a year, and then they'd get caught because every year you do a test, and they would just never pass. It's very strict what you can modify. But with spiritual people and in the spiritual world, people kind of do the same thing. They believe they understand something others don't, and they have maybe read a lot of stuff, but maybe they don't have so much experience, or maybe they have experience and they interpret it in some very different way. And it's always difficult to come and say that they're wrong, because at the same time they could actually be right. But then sometimes it really does a lot of damage to themselves and people around them. And then I think it's a little bit like when people then staple their lead strips onto their fuel tank. Like anyone who would look at that would say, yeah, you know what, that's probably not a good idea, because the fuel tank is like contains gasoline or diesel, so probably you shouldn't puncture holes in it to fasten your lead strips. I mean, lead strips are cool, they are, sure, especially when they're blinking, but you probably still shouldn't staple through them and then have electricity run where there's going to be gasoline dripping. I mean, I'm just saying. So it's for someone who, like me, has practiced a lot of meditation, seen a lot of things, and I'm not saying I have all the answers. I have a perspective, and my perspective is that we just describe what we experience. We try to interpret as little as possible. We try to extrapolate as little as possible. It would just come down to the bare basics of what happens when we distort towards things, which is my way of explaining when you have resistance, or when you have something you have a hard time accepting. And except for that, it's like everything else is less true. So yeah, I just found that interesting watching that video. When I thought about that, I'm like, how is it possible that someone, and it's I mean, those cases were not even the worst. They were just the ones that were the easiest to describe. You should really look at that. And when I watch some spiritual videos, I get a very similar feeling of what people are doing, because they're just so far out there that it's yeah, the risk of hurting themselves and others, or just completely, I mean, just not much purpose, or they're counterproductive to what they actually say they want to do. Let's see, what's the name of the show again? Customer states, because it's a customer comes into the garage and they say customer states that, and then there's something like the customer states that the radio is broken and needs to be replaced, and then they go in and they press the on button. Or a customer states that there's something wrong with their reversing camera, because there's this white line whenever they put it in reverse, and then it's their bumper. And it's like this very interesting explanations and thoughts and people have. Or someone had raised their car, you can make it go high, like, so they put like metal stuff in between to make it higher. So someone had taken an extra axle for the car to put it on top of the other axle, and it had bound it together with some kind of just metal wire or so. It's just like, how would you even think that's a good idea? It's just, I mean, there's ingenuity in it that they actually got it working, because somehow they had gotten the drive shaft down. Hey, Stephen, they got drive shaft down so it actually turned the wheels. I mean, that's impressive in and of itself, but it's just dangerous, like really dangerous. Thanks so much for that show. Yeah, it's fun. I really I've been starting. I like cars, and I do a bit like repair work myself, because I just find it fun. And that popped up on my stream, and I've been watching it the last few days and just had a lot of fun. So, but in the end, just don't take things too seriously, and don't get too caught up in too many weird things when it comes to the spiritual world. There's just so much, and I mean, you would not believe how many people I've met who actually got mentally worse after they started practicing some kind of practice or meditation, because they brought on all these beliefs about how they had to be, and before they had to be popular, before they had to be rich, before they had to be successful and attractive, but then they left that behind to walk the spiritual world, and instead they had to make sure they didn't kill a single living being, meaning they can't even move. They had to make sure that they took responsibility for their past karma, which obviously they don't know how much it is, but probably many, many lifetimes and all the stuff they've done. And then they have to take responsibility not just for their own karma, but for everyone's karma. And you have to take responsibility for the energies other people are putting out, or you have to take responsibility for what you're thinking about, and then you try to control your thoughts, and then you think about something you don't want to think about, and you feel like, oh man, I shouldn't. Compare that to just having to become successful, rich, and good looking. I mean, that's easy in comparison to like what you have to do in the spiritual sense. And they both have the same erroneous belief, meaning that if I could only become good looking, if I could only become successful, if I could only look at all my past karma, if I could only have contact with some higher being outside of this now, then I will be happy, and then I am allowed to enjoy life. Then this will be enjoyable, and whatever it is we're here for will make sense. Instead of just enjoying now, instead of just feeling good right now, like this moment, there's nothing you need to wait for, like actually just doing it now. So I find that I don't know how I drew the parallel between people doing crazy stuff with their cars and spiritual people, but I hope it makes sense to you, and I hope that the more you hear this, even though you don't agree with it, you can think I'm dumb and I just don't get it, and that's fine. But at least it's another perspective that might help you if you run into problems and start feeling bad from your practice, which is a very common thing that happens to a lot of people. Cool. Oh, I've been rambling. It's time for a sitting. Let's see. So for those of you who are new, we start with the 5-4-3-2-1 method, which is a mindfulness exercise where we focus on our senses to come back to here, to enjoy being here. And we're doing it in the sense that we say 5 things I see, 5 things I can touch, hear, smell, and taste. And we're not doing them to just do them. We're doing them to really be aware of the senses and not saying, okay, I see a sofa. I mean, I say I see a sofa. We say it out loud. But we're trying to see the actual colors, the shapes, the shadows, the surfaces, the fabric. We're trying to really observe. There's a saying, in the seen is only the seen, in the heard is only the heard. Meaning we're trying to see without the interpretations. And it's okay that you have your mind coming in, that's fine. Instead, look at how you feel towards it. Try to not feel, I know what this is, but try to look at it with the sense of, wow, I've never seen this before. Kind of when you look at a piece of art and you're like, oh, this is new, something I haven't experienced before. Which is why art usually works for a few times, but then when you looked at that painting for 100 times, it usually doesn't do the same thing for you, only in the beginning. After that, we sit for 20 minutes, and today is Monday, so we have a guided meditation, and then there's a question and answer after, if there's any questions. Usually there's some really interesting discussion, so I'd recommend you stick around for that. Cool. So we'll start with the, with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So say it out loud with me, 5 things you can see, and try to say it out loud if you can. If you can't because you're somewhere you can't say it out loud, then just be quiet and say it to yourself. But the main thing is stop and be aware. So I see a pair of rolled up socks. I see a plastic mat on the floor. I see some folded sheets. I see a fire extinguisher. And I see water bottles. Now we take 4 things that we can touch. So I can touch my nose. I can feel the hair on my face. And I can touch the blanket that I have on me. And I can touch the cup for my tea. And we do 3 things that we can hear. I can hear the fan of my computer. I can hear someone closing a car door. I can hear a horse. And then we take 2 things that we can smell. They get gradually slower to do because you have to focus more. Let's see. 2 things we can smell. I can smell my body after today. Sweat. I can smell the office. There's a scent to this room. And finally we do 1 thing that we can taste. I'd say that just tastes like bad breath. Yeah, bad breath. So for this meditation, it's nice if you can sit down. You could even lie down or stand up. If you really wanted, you could walk even. The main thing is that we're going to bring our awareness to our breath. And we're not focusing on a small area. Instead, we're trying to keep a wide sense of awareness. More than noticing the individual sensations of how the air hits the nostrils and cools down the nasal cavity and then hits the back of the nasal cavity as it turns and goes down. And then you can feel sometimes even further down the throat, and then how the lungs are expanding. Instead of going into that kind of detail, I want you to use the breath as a way of becoming aware, as a way of becoming aware of what's happening inside of you. So when we say being aware of your breath, we're trying to be aware of breath happening in the upper torso area. Also, I forgot to mention, but if it's possible, it's recommended that you keep your eyes closed if it's safe to do so. But it's also fine to keep your eyes open if you prefer that. So start by bringing your awareness to your breath and noticing as breath is happening inside of you. Later on, we'll be doing an exercise where we count our breath from 1 to 8 and then down from 8 to 1. And when we do it, I'll breathe aloud. I'll do. And I do this just to emphasize and show you that I'm breathing in and breathing out. But the kind of breath that we're actually trying to do in this meditation is not forced breath. It's not breath work or some kind of breathing exercise where we breathe in a rhythm. Instead, we're trying to get out of the way and let breath happen. Kind of playing with the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, I guess. Meaning that you can control your breath, but you can also not think of your breath or not control your breath, which is more difficult, and then it will happen by itself. So we're trying to just stand to the side and observe as breath is happening. And to make this a bit easier, we'll do the exercise where we count from 1 to 8 and then down from 8 to 1. And I'll do it together with you one time, and then you can continue by yourself. And I'll come in during the meditation throughout to give you some pointers to think about. So starting together, we'll breathe in and breathe out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. 2. Breathing in, breathing out. 3. Breathing in, breathing out. 4. Breathing in, breathing out. 5. Breathing in, breathing out. 6. Breathing in, breathing out. 7. Breathing in, breathing out. 8. Breathing in, breathing out. 7. Breathing in and breathing out. 6. Breathing in and breathing out. 5. Breathing in, breathing out. 4. Breathing in, breathing out. 3. Breathing in, breathing out. 2. Breathing in and breathing out. 1. Now continue counting by yourself from 1 to 8 and then down again from 8 to 1 as you're breathing in, breathing out. 1. Breathing in, breathing out. This kind of meditation is often called, or it's leaning towards what would be called concentration meditation. This is a concept that's often misunderstood in the Western world. And maybe it's because concentration is actually not the best word to use. Instead, it would be better to be called stickiness of the mind meditation, or continuous refocusing meditation would probably be the best term to describe it. Because you're not getting focus as in hyper focus, where your mind is super sharp and you're seeing through all the veils of reality and like some kind of superhero show. Instead, what we're trying to do is coming back to whatever our object of meditation is, and that can be many different things. And by coming back every time we get distracted, we gain samadhi or concentration. And by doing this, the mind gradually calms down. Your awareness calms down. It stops jumping around from point to point, and you'll sometimes feel a bit drowsy as you sink into the object you're observing. And it's not something you strain to do. In fact, if you do strain, then it's counterproductive. And if you do blame, that's also counterproductive. And if you think you're going to get fame, well, that's definitely counterproductive. Instead, the only thing you need to do is just keep on coming back. And the more you can accept that you suck at coming back and staying with the object of your meditation, which is, in this case is the breath, the easier it will be. It's a humbling exercise, because you'll realize how difficult it is to do something so incredibly simple as staying with your breath. And the more you can accept that, the more you can accept that you will fail, the more you can accept it without wanting the world to be different, the better you will get at this, and the calmer your mind will become, and the easier it will be after that to refocus your awareness, to be aware of what's happening with your senses, to feel joy, to be happy, to walk around in the world and not be half in a dream or off in some distant thought or memory, but actually there and being present. Even though this meditation in of itself can make you disconnect a little bit from the world. So be kind to yourself and keep on refocusing, coming back over and over again to your breath as you're breathing in and breathing out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. Sometimes it will feel impossible to not follow your thoughts, to not get caught up in the distortion of some fantasy or the pull of something that will happen in the future or that happened in the past. Something that is actively taking you away from now. Actively, even though you believe it does make your life better, it's actually making your life worse because you are missing what's happening right in front of you. And I can promise you, if you learn to observe your breath, something so simple as sitting still and breathing, it will be more enjoyable than any memory you could ever bring up, or any fantasy that you could ever bring up. If you're able to just observe breathing happening, if you're able to just observe being here, being alive, and the pure magic of that, which is incredible if you think about it. And the way that it feels is that there's a sometimes almost nauseating feeling when you don't follow that comfortable thought or that alluring fantasy, or maybe you're getting caught up in some terrible thing that happened or that you're worried will happen. It will feel like, no, I need to think this through. Let Martin continue doing his meditation, that's fine. I'm going to sit here and figure out or enjoy this memory. And it can almost feel physically uncomfortable to stop that and instead go with the breath. And that is the reason why we do the counting, because it helps. It forces you to stay and observe the breath. There's also a reason why we put the counting number at the pause that happens between an out breath and an in breath, because that's where, when I was meditating, I noticed that that's where my thoughts came in and I got swept away. So we do the in breath, and there's a short pause and a turnaround as we breathe out, and then there's a longer pause, and in that pause we put the number 1. And then we breathe in again and breathe out. As usual, if you want, you can keep on sitting or just drink some tea with me. But it's also open for questions if anyone has them. This is one of those sittings where I'm thinking, oh, maybe we should have half-hour sittings instead, or a little bit longer, because sometimes it's just really, really nice to sit. And 20 minutes is, I'd say that that's the minimum I would consider a good sitting cycle is, because you have time to get into it. If you do 5 minutes, you can calm down a little bit, but it really takes a little bit of time to not just get into this calmness feeling and just be able to observe the world around you. But the more you stay in that, there's kind of things that happen by themselves. And when I sit myself, I never do a timer anymore. I highly recommend to people to use a timer in the beginning. The first few thousand hours that you sit, you should really have a timer, because it helps you not just stop when it gets uncomfortable, and not just stop because, oh, I think I'm done now. But when you've sat for a few thousand hours, when you really have some experience, you'll see, okay, now I'm actually finished. There's every sitting has a cycle that you go through where it feels like I sit down and it starts and I go into this, and then you're kind of done, and then it makes sense to get up. And if you want to make a longer meditation, then you do walking meditation and then you sit again. Generally speaking, there's not much point sitting longer than 45 minutes to an hour 15. I rarely sit longer than that, and most people I know that sit like intensely do longer than that, because there's just not much point to it. Let's see, much is saying. Was a really challenging but rewarding meditation for me. I forgot to mute my phone and got 4 notifications and even a call, but I somehow managed to return to my breath without acting. See, that's good meditation practice, Mats. I almost thought, I have this idea for, I want to make a guided meditation with lots of commercial interruptions, just to not piss people off, but to make people feel like, I don't want this. Because you're actually meditating and you're in a state of, okay, I'm aware of what's happening. And then when you hear that, like your whole body kind of goes like this, like, oh, no. And realize that if you weren't meditating, what 99% of other people, except for people who actually look inwards, would do is they would simply go, oh, wait a minute, I was supposed to meditate. So you observe that distortion, and then when it rings, it's even more. So for me, that's kind of the best meditations when stuff like that happens, because it challenges you. It's not about sitting down and becoming calm and becoming peaceful and experiencing some kind of this. That's not what we're trying to do. I mean, sometimes that happens, and that's really nice. Don't avoid it. When it's happened, just welcome it, and that's really nice. But what we're really trying to do is what you did there. Have some bastard come and interrupt our meditation, and we get to look at ourselves, our ego, like, I am important, I'm doing this, no, they should not be interrupting, and like, I forgot my phone, how dumb I am. I'm like, no, it's okay. Those things happen. Now we're just sitting, and there's someone playing loud music, there's a child crying, or, okay, if a child is crying, you should obviously go and help the child. But you get my point. So that's interesting, and it's a good observation. It is challenging, but those are the best meditations, in my opinion. I see Stephen is saying, why do I feel worried that if I let certain things go, my life won't be good? Why do I feel worried that if I let certain things go, my life won't be good? You mean if you let go of certain things in your life? Is that what you mean? I'm not entirely sure what you're saying. I'm assuming that's what you mean. I mean, since I talk from the perspective of distortion, I mean, the sense of self is just distortion. If you would take away all distortion, you would have no sense of self. And the sense of self comes from how we push and pull. Like, I'm really simplifying here, how we push and pull towards things around us. So if you're letting go of, say, since you were a child, your parents told you that you had to study really hard and you had to become a doctor. Okay, I'm really stereotypical here. I'm just making this stuff up now. You really had to become a doctor, and you convince yourself, to get the love of my parents, I need to become a doctor. I need to become successful, and then I will be happy, and I'll get to enjoy life, and I will get the rewards I've been promised, and I will get a partner that I will love, and I will get a family, and I can find something that I don't have now. Kind of like there's a lot of pull towards. There's a lot of distortion. There's a lot of tension between this thing here that it seems to hit and then pull out there. So when you let go of that, you're basically letting go of your identity, of who you are. You're saying, oh, well, what if I didn't do that? And then the sense of this distortion, because it's like, it's inertia. The more you think I need to become a doctor, the more you do that, as soon as you try to get out of that, it's going to be like, oh, no, 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 no. We're not going to do that. We're going to go to become a doctor, because if you don't, you won't be loved by your parents. You won't be accepted by society. You won't get all these things you fantasized about since you were a child, and you won't get the partner. You'll be lonely. You'll be unsuccessful. You'll live alone in a basement. So all these things will come up because you've convinced yourself by pushing and pulling towards this thing for so long. So when you start letting go of those things, it can be really difficult, because you're basically letting go of who you are. Now, I really want to emphasize something that gets misunderstood a lot of times. I am not saying you shouldn't become a doctor. I am not saying you shouldn't listen to the advice of your parents. I'm just saying that the distortion, the discomfort you feel when you think about what you think you want to become, when that is uncomfortable, then you have something you need to work with. And if you can work with that and let go of it, it might turn out that you realize, you know what, I hated becoming a doctor because I was forced into it. But now when I don't feel I need to do it, I actually love it. It's incredible. I get to help people. It's a good pay. I meet all these fantastic people. I get to work in places I wouldn't have worked before, and I can do things I couldn't do before. I can travel around the world, like Doctors Without Borders, or whatever you want to do, where I can actually make a difference on this planet, and I like that. And I like working with people. I like learning things. I'm intelligent. I'm not saying I am, but someone who would be studying to a doctor would need to have at least intelligence to understand these kind of things that you need to, or a good memory at least. So I am not saying that letting go, and I think this is important to understand, that letting go of things doesn't mean you don't do them. It just means you let go of the distortion, the tension between this thing you believe is you and this thing out here you believe you need to have to be happy. Because if you look at it, there's this belief that if I could only become a doctor, if I could only get that thing, then all these other things will come, and then I will be happy. So we're looking at this part. We're not actually looking at the doctor, at the partner, like those things. It might be that you decide, you know what, being in a relationship, it's too damn difficult. I'm just going to live in celibacy. And I respect that. People who do that, I understand. If you decide not to get kids, when I was younger, I thought everyone should have kids. Of course you should have kids. It's like our nature. That's what we were put here to do. After having kids myself, I can understand people who consciously decide we're not going to have kids. And I think for a lot of people, that's actually a good idea, because you probably shouldn't have kids then. It might be that you change your mind once you have kids, but like having a child is a huge thing. It's not something you should do just because you have to do it or you should do it. You should really want to do that. So I'm not talking about what we do. I'm talking about how we relate to what we do. That's why you feel discomfort or worried when you try to let go of certain things in your life, because this inertia that you've had says you have to do this, otherwise you will be a failure. Andreas, how do you think when things don't go as you planned? Things rarely go as I planned. A lot of times they actually go better, but sometimes they most definitely go worse. Especially if it involves my kids and I try to do something. When you try to do something and it doesn't work, so I'll tell a story from today. Today I went to visit, Andreas, you're Swedish, right? So have you been to Gekås in Ullared? Have you ever been there? I think it's the largest store in Sweden. They had today, when I was there, I think they have 10,000 parking lots. And I asked the security agent, and he said that they had gotten numbers of about 70 of those parking lots being free. Yes, good. So when I was there, all parking lots, there were 70 parking lots that were free, according to the security agent. And there were 7,800 people in the store. We're talking a pretty big store. And they have wagons. You can barely walk through. So I got there and I was like, okay, I'm just going to run in. I had a few things I was going to buy because they're really cheap there, some things. And I came there like, I can't. I was facing the possibility that I was not going to be able to find a parking space because there's just so many people. So things didn't go as I had planned. I planned go there, get a parking spot. I actually planned on going earlier, but I went to visit my mother before and spent some more time there. So I was quite late. So I get there, didn't go as I planned, and instead of like, okay, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna stress, I'm gonna get the wagon. Instead, I called my fiance. I said, I'm sorry, but this is gonna take more time. And she said, it's okay. Like you take your time, and I'll take care of the kids. So I went to eat because I was quite hungry. I went to eat, had something nice to eat. I sat down. Food was late, took more time than it was supposed to, and I just sat there and I watched people come and go. And it was very interesting to see how many different people there are and how they come, how different people walk. I really enjoy seeing people in movement because you can tell a lot about people. And then I sat there and I ate the food and I enjoyed it. I went to the bathroom. I felt full. I had gone to the bathroom. I was feeling pretty good. My things were not going as I had planned, but I was feeling pretty good. And then instead of getting a wagon, because I knew when there's that many people, you can't actually push the wagon through the store. You kind of have to follow this huge stream through the aisles that they go, and you just pluck stuff. Okay, I'm almost exaggerating, almost. And then you move on, but it's impossible to go back. You kind of have to leave your wagon and then walk back. So instead, I took one of those small baskets that you can carry. And I went in and I walked around and I kind of looked at people, and I found it interesting how people like dressed up so much to go shopping, especially young kids. They dressed up and they're walking around, and I didn't find all the things. And I noticed that when like, okay, I need to get this. And I started walking fast and I was looking for it. Then I got really stressed and I felt all this pressure on me, and I started feeling almost nauseous because there were so many people in there. But as soon as I slowed down and I didn't focus on where I wanted to go, but instead I focused on where I was and what I was doing, and then I was just walking, and my body felt okay because I had eaten and I had went to the bathroom. I had to go to the bathroom again, and then I was thirsty, so I got something to drink. And then I walked around and I found some things that I needed. And then I asked people a lot more. The people who worked, I said, where do I find this? And they, oh, go over there. It's over there. So instead of looking around, panicking, I just walked and I went downstairs. And one thing I wanted to get was too heavy. So I said, well, I'm just going to, since I didn't have the wagon, I'm just going to leave this and I'll take it some other day. And then I walked around and I didn't get all the things I wanted to because I couldn't fit them, but I got most of the things I wanted to. I walked out and then I got in the car and it was raining when I was walking to the car, which was quite far. So I could have walked, and some people would stand like, oh, it's raining, and they were complaining. And then I'm like, oh, it's raining. Well, it's actually not that bad. And I walked out and I walked to buy some fishing rods. I bought 5 fishing rods because I want to have for me, my daughter, and a friend, and then his kid. So we can go and fish, like mieta we call it, where we just have a rod and let's floating thing and fish these small fishes. So things didn't go as I planned, but instead I focused on the things I wanted to do, and I didn't focus on the things I wanted to do. I focused on what I was doing right now. And even if things didn't go as I wanted to do them to go, because that's the only way that you can feel bad, but just being here, meaning that, okay, I still haven't gotten to get the fishing rods. I still haven't gotten to getting the socks that I wanted to buy or the things I wanted to go. But right now, that doesn't matter because right now I'm here and right now I'm walking. And right now life is actually pretty enjoyable. I'm not sick. I'm not feeling bad. I mean, I have some aches and pains in my body because my body is not feeling so well. But I feel pretty good. So I enjoyed and I walked around. And that's what I do when things don't go as I planned. Thank you, Mats. It's always good to have you. I hope that... yes, I will go there again. But I will not go there during summer vacation when it's bad weather. That's pretty much when it's the worst to go there because that's when you have the most possible people there. So you go there when it's sunny or you go outside of summer vacation. When I was a kid, they had a queue, and they literally had a camera you could go and like look at if you could go in, because there would be a queue to get in, and you could stand outside for an hour. But now it's so big they can have lots of people in there. That's a good question. Did that make sense, by the way, Andreas? My answer there, that when things don't go as planned, we tend to then focus on the planning part and how you want it to be a specific way. What I'm saying is, focus on what you're doing right now. Don't skip the goal, or like the outcome that you're looking for. But don't focus on it. Just move in that direction and keep your awareness here. Because what we do is we move our awareness there, and and you can really feel this distortion. It's the same as when you sit still and your thoughts are bringing you some other awareness. You're like, no, come back to the breath. That discomfort, that distortion, that pressure or tension, it's the same, which is, again, why we're doing this exercise. We're not doing it to get calm. We're doing it to learn to observe this discomfort or pressure, so that when it happens, when you're at the store, or when things don't happen as you want them to, then you can deal with them and not get caught up in the whole thing that's happening around you. Cool. Happy that helped. Well, it's actually getting kind of late. Oh, and I've been walking a lot today. I had a fun day. Like I said, it really ended up being a really nice day, even though there were many people there and things didn't go as I planned. It was a nice day, and these evening sittings are always great, so it's been a good day. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate people coming, and that people come back. And it's nice when people have questions, because it helps me to talk about it, and I hope it helps you, and I hope it gives you something, that the sittings actually make you enjoy life more, and that it doesn't complicate your life more. Thank you, Andreas. And I'll see everyone back on Thursday. Thank you, and have a good week until then.